Hello, and welcome to another episode of the All-CAW Wrestling video podcast type thing. Today we're heading back to 1989 and the NWA. The year Dusty Rhodes was given the boot, Ric Flair was given the book, did marvellous things, nobody really cared enough to make the ratings or the buy rates go up much, and would then get passed in favour of Ole Anderson, who brought us the likes of the Black Scorpion and the Shockmaster.
Wait, the Shockmaster?
We'll get into that in due course. For now though, this was the show that started a good run for WCW and the NWA. Today, we are taking a look at Chi-Town Rumble, the second pay-per-view in about as many months to come from Chicago. The other being the disastrous AWA Super Clash 3 that had less people in the stands than a Global Force wrestling event.
But seeing as that isn't on the WWE network, we'll just ignore that one and move on.
Yes, probably for the best. So, I am El Gran Papa D, and I am joined here at the podcasting table by El Poco Papa E.
We've been watching Luger Underground, can you tell?
Yes, and it is rather good. I was very impressed with the likes of Prince Puma and Hexagon Jr.
Yeah.
Also happy to see Alberto Del Rio, or Alberto El Patron, and John Morrison. Or what's he called? Johnny Mundo.
Yeah, he is.
And apparently they have been renewed for a season 2 as well. Well, it's going to be a 99.9% chance that there will be a season 2, so I really hope that happens because we are enjoying what's happening with Lucha Underground.
Suddenly a wild Russo appears.
Oh, don't you dare. Anyway, on to Chi-Town Rumble.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how they called it Chi-Town Rumble, because it just looks like a desperate attempt for some attention so soon after the WWF's annual Royal Rumble. Why not call it Chi-Town Showdown? Or something like that, it'll rhyme.
Yeah, there is like an emphasis on the word rumble. I mean, they could have had, as you say, Chi-Town Showdown. I would say Chi-Town Heat, but I think there's already another event they do which is called Chi-Town Heat. They could have had Showdown and Little... they could have had Trouble in Little Showdown. I don't know. Chi-Down Clash. Chi-Down Clash. Big Trouble in Little Chi-Down, that's what I should have said.
Yeah. You're having some trouble there, right?
I can't talk. Anyway, as an aside, the VHS box cover for this pay-per-view was a big picture of Road Warrior Animal beating up Lex Luger, which would be fitting if, those two actually wrestled each other on the show.
Wait, what?
This also happens to be the thumbnail for this pay-per-view on the WWE network. So well done there to the network lads for not spotting the obvious mistake and replacing it with a thumbnail of Flair vs Steamboat instead.
So, we're now live from Chicago, obviously, and your hosts for this evening are Jim Ross and Magnum TA.
No Tony Schiavone porn tash this time then, although Magnum's Mo is certainly a splendid one.
First match is Michael P.S. Hayes, or Doc Hendricks as Midnight his WWF fans would come to know him, taking on the imaginatively named Russian Assassin No. 1 with Paul Jones.
This is Michael P.S. Hayes' first appearance on pay-per-view since Starrcade 87, which was a NWA UWF co-promoted pay-per-view event.
Quick question, what does PS stand for?
Purely sexy.
Right, really glad I asked now.
Hayes, along with the rest of the Fabulous Freebirds, had previously wrestled in the NWA, AWA, UWF, WCCW, and even a brief stint in the WWF. They also appeared in the opening credits of Highlander as part of the wrestling match that Christopher Lambert's character, Connor McLeod, is watching in Madison Square Garden at the beginning of the film.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Here, Hayes is freshly arrived in the NWA after a brief return to the world-class area. And this match was right before his heel turn. Because, come on, who wants to watch a Fabulous Freebird as babyface? Especially when he doesn't have the rest of the birds with him.
Under the mask of the assassin is Jack Victory, who will be pulling double duty tonight. Does that mean he gets paid twice?
The assassin looks like he has the match in the bag by hitting the Russian sickle, but only gets a 2 count.
Nikita, he ain't.
Hayes comes back with a crossbody as Capetta announces the 10-minute mark. Assassin kills the match with a chin lock though. Hayes gets fired up, but the assassin blocks a bulldog. Finally, Assassin misses a charge and posts himself, allowing Hayes to finish off with the DDT at the 15-minute 48-second mark. Hayes was actually in really good shape here and was becoming a better all-round athlete. Sadly, too much Jack victory dragged this match down.
Next up, it's Sting versus Butch Reed with Hiro Masuda, so we can really tell who the heel is in this match. Also, why is someone as popular as Sting only on the second match of the card?
Yeah, the NWA completely wasted Sting for over a year after his Clash match with Ric Flair at the first ever Clash of the Champions. That match made Sting. I mean, he was easily the most popular man in WCW, and yet he's in the second match here.
Sting really deserves a medal for never jumping to WWE.
His Flair match was in March 1988, yet he wouldn't even get a singles belt, the TV title no less, for another year. Jim Ross obviously knows that WCW are missing a trick with Sting here, so being the Sting fan that he is, Ross spends a good portion of the match absolutely gushing over how good Sting is.
I'm beginning to think that Ross probably needed a tissue after this match was done.
Thanks for that image.
You're very welcome.
Tonight, the Stinger is facing another reject from the WWF, Butch Reed, who had departed from the Federation shortly after his first round tournament loss to eventual winner Randy Savage at WrestleMania 4. Jim Ross drops his first WWF diss by saying, "This is the NWA, we wrestle here."
He also harps on about soup bones. I'm really not sure what those are, but apparently Butch Reed has them.
Maybe he's good at making soup. Sting takes Reed down in a wrist lock and bites his fingers. Good babyface tactic.
Delicious.
Reed tosses Sting to the floor and grounds the match with a chin lock for nearly 10 minutes. Those chin locks again.
Oh god.
Sting fires back but goes for a pump splash and lands on Reed's knees. Reed hits a neck breaker and gets 2. Back to the chin lock. At least he's pulling the tights to get some heat for the move. Sting slugs his way back and goes for a sunset flip. Reed nearly steals it with a handful of ropes, but Teddy Long catches him and makes him break. Funny that, considering that Teddy would later become Butch Reed's manager. Sting completes the move and gets the pin at the 20-minute 4-second mark.
This match really didn't deserve 20 minutes, and to be honest, most of that was chin lock.
Pretty good match though, despite the fact that Sting should have been way above Reed at this point.
Next up we have a 6-man tag team match, which pits the Midnight Express and Jim Cornette versus Randy Rose, Jack Victory and Paulie Dangerously. And the man who gets pinned will have to leave the NWA. Thank God.
I wouldn't say that. This was supposed to be the Midnights versus the original Midnights, carrying on from their feud at Starrcade. But Condrey found out that he was going to be the one getting pinned, Dennis Condrey. So, realising he was out of a job already, he walked out on the pay-per-view, basically going, you, and leaving Paulie to resort to Jack Victory as a substitute, making the whole match very anticlimactic. That really killed the heat for this match. I mean, it's too bad they couldn't lure Norvell Austin back.
I was also really surprised to see Paulie Dangerously, as in Paul Heyman, with a mullet.
Yes, if you want to see how stressful running ECW was, check out Paulie with a full head of hair, well, okay, mostly full, and realise it was all gone 7 years later. Paulie also has a white and pink sweatshirt, which according to Ross is very appropriate.
Jack Victory looks really out of place here, mainly because he doesn't have a mullet.
Will you stop going on about mullets?
I can't help it, they fascinate me.
Carney is having way too much fun during this match. He adds an elbow during a tandem sequence and does the Fargo strut. Big pop for that. Eaton holds Rose for a cornet punch, so Rose and Dangerously try the same thing, but it backfires. Paul makes nice with Randy though. Finally, Rose launches Eaton off the apron onto the railing to take over. Carney tags in and calls out Paul E, but he gets caught in the heel corner and takes a beating from Heyman.
Wouldn't that be an interesting brawl these days, considering these two can't stand each other now?
Dangerously stops to pose. That allows Carney to come back. Lane tags in, but now he gets caught in the heel corner to complete the trifecta. Victory charges into a boot though, and Eaton gets the hot tag. Eaton hits a missile dropkick and forces Victory to tag Paul E. That turns it into Cornette versus Dangerously. The whole thing breaks down and Rose misses a dive off the top. Dangerously hops on Lane's back. Cool finishes as Lane shoves Victory into Rose during a double T move, knocking Victory to the floor. That sets up a double flapjack on Rose for the win at the 15-minute, 54-second mark. Rose has to leave the NWA as a result of the decision. This was a surprisingly good match, even with the mismatched heel tandem.
Cornette and Heyman really added a lot of enthusiasm, as usual.
I noticed at this point that there isn't any ring entrances during this pay-per-view. After a match, we cut to something else, like a backstage interview or a post-match discussion with Ross and Magnum. Then it's back to the ring for the next match and everybody is already there. I imagine that the only exception to this tonight will be the Flair vs Steamboat match.
So next up, it's our first title match of the night, as NWA TV champion Rick Steiner with Scott Steiner fights Mike Rotundo with Kevin Sullivan.
Rick defeated Rotundo for the TV title at Starrcade, and this is the rematch. This is also the pay-per-view debut appearance of Scott Steiner, who was at ringside for his brother here, having been poached from the AWA.
This is also at a time where Scott Steiner is the normal one out of the Steiners. It's all downhill from here.
But with Scott Steiner now in his brother's corner, would you say that Mike Rotundo's chances of winning this match have drastically gone down?
Yes, he has 33 and a 2/3% chance of winning.
Rotundo gets to do his amateur stuff here instead of his pro wrestling heel stuff. Steiner misses a splash and gets tossed to the floor. Back in, he hits a power slam, but he stops to bark and only gets 2.
Wait, he barks?
Well, yes, he's the dog-faced gremlin.
Why? And doesn't he have his own dog? Why does he feel the need to bark? I have so many questions.
Well, Kevin Sullivan manages to distract Rick by saying that he's going to do nasty things to his dog, which just makes him sound like, you know, like the RSPCA should be calling around.
Kevin Sullivan, stay away.
Kevin, yeah. If it wasn't bad enough that he was like a devil worshipper in some of the previous pay-per-views we've seen him in, and an obvious sexual predator, he's now threatening to do nasty things to a dog as well.
He walks into a pet shop. Oh God, it's Kevin Sullivan! Take him down.
Well, anyway, Kevin Sullivan manages to distract Rick by saying nasty things about his dog, which gives enough time for Rotundo to recover. Back in, Steiner locks in a sleeper, and Rotundo goes down.
Jim Ross shouts that he's going sleepy by, because apparently Jim Ross is 5 years old.
Problem is, Rotundo goes down on top of Rick Steiner. And Steiner ends up pinning himself at the 16-minute, 27-second mark. Oh!
Well done, Scott!
No, well done, Rick.
Oh, yeah. Well done, Rick!
Good match, although I wonder what an extended feud between Rick and Rotundo's partner Steve Williams would have been like. You know, Steve Williams versus Rick Steiner. Both very powerful, both very hairy. Considering how popular Steiner was, it seemed like an odd thing to have him lose the belt so soon. But again, Rick would be busy forming one of the greatest tag teams in wrestling history. But that's to come later.
Another title match is next, as United States Heavyweight Champion Barry Windham, with Hiro Masuda, takes on Lex Luger. Is this the same US title that Seth Rollins has?
Pretty much, yes.
Oh, okay, so it's quite a lineage.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you could say this is the same type of lineage that the WWF Intercontinental title has. Or rather, had.
Also, everyone that J.J. Dillon used to manage is now being managed by Hiro Masuda. What's happened there?
Well, J.J. Dillon has actually left WCW in February 1989 to work for the WWF. So that's basically Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and J.J. Dillon all jumping ship.
Can't really be called the Four Horsemen anymore then, can they?
Well, no, you've still got Flair and Windham, but they're now just known as the Horsemen at this point. Anyway, this is the much-delayed blow-off match to the Luger versus Windham feud, which had originally started in April 1988 when Windham turned on Luger during an NWA World Tag Team title defence against Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. Windham turned against his partner Luger and ended up joining the Four Horsemen.
Well, that was ages ago.
Luger dominates early, hitting an atomic drop and tossing Windham into the post. He misses a diving shoulder block though and falls to the floor. Windham takes over as Ross giddily recaps their amateur football careers.
Yeah, that's something he really has a habit of doing.
Yeah, and he'd continue to do that when he came to the WWF as well.
Damn it, Jim Ross.
Luger climbs to the top rope and blows a flying clothesline, ending up on the floor. Windham sends Luger into the timekeeper's table. He suplexes him back in. The two trade rights with Luger getting the worst of it as one of the shots splits his eyebrow open. They fall out onto the floor and Luger rests against the ring post. Barry charges in and smashes his fist against the post, legitimately breaking it. Barry's entire body turns beet red as he slowly gets back in the ring.
Jeebus, he actually broke his hand.
He did.
Ugh.
Back in, Windham immediately goes for the claw. The claw!
Made worse if you're wearing black gloves somehow.
Yes, but not when you've got a broken hand. Luger powers out of the move and smashes it with his bare hand. Windham stays on top, but he can't use his right hand. And a close-up shot actually shows that his hand is dripping blood. But Barry still charges on.
You wouldn't see that in WWE today. So it's now turning into a bloodbath, which is fun. I'm surprised they really didn't stop the match.
Well, this was the NWA in 1989, mate. So Luger's got his forehead split open and his eyebrow split open, shoving, and Windham's got blood pouring out of his hand. And has got a broken hand. Windham hits a struggling superplex. Big pop for that. 1, 2, 3, no.
No.
Windham picks up Luger and delivers a bridging backdrop suplex. Luger gets his shoulder up before 3 though, and Windham pins himself at the 10-minute, 40-second mark.
Can people please stop pinning themselves in this pay-per-view?
Windham carried the psychology, action and pacing here despite having a broken hand. So this was actually one of the better matches for either guy.
Hang on, Windham still had to carry the match despite having a broken hand.
Well, yes, that just shows how useless Lex Luger is, really.
Well done, Lex Luger. Could have been bald, one green armour, and wait, that's a Superman villain.
You're thinking of Lex Luthor, aren't you?
Yes. I can't not think about Lex Luger without thinking about Lex Luthor. Anyway, yeah, Windham takes his frustrations out on Luger afterwards, pile driving him on the belt, which Luger really doesn't sell. Thanks, Lex. Does this set them up for a rematch?
You would have thought so, but this ends up being Barry's last NWA match for a while, as he had to leave to let his hand heal, which never really did completely. After a disappointing stint in the WWF as the Widowmaker, a heel cowboy-type character, he'd come back to WCW in 1990, but he'd be nowhere near as big as he was prior to this.
I have a lot of newfound respect for Barry Windham now. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to keep actually wrestling for another 10 minutes when your hand's all smashed up.
I mean, don't worry, we'll see him again, and he'll still be a horseman when he returns.
Next up, we have the NWA World Tag Titles. The Road Warriors, with Paul Ellering, versus the Varsity Club.
The Roadies finally won the NWA Tag Team titles in late 1988, after 2 years of entering the company. And as usual, when the Warriors were champs, it's hard to find opponents who could really be opponents, and not just, well, victims. The only legit heel tag team at this point was the Midnights, whom the Warriors had annihilated to win the belts. So they were fed the Varsity Club.
Delicious. Sullivan and Dr. Death are representing the club, and were also the US Tag Team champs. Funnily enough, this really isn't advertised as a unification match. And although Williams is definitely physically imposing, no one's really going to take a tag team with Kevin Sullivan in it that seriously. So to say there wasn't much heat for this match would be an understatement.
He has a rather unique body type, does Kevin Sullivan, doesn't he?
Yes, he looks like a potato. With legs.
Williams and Hawk exchange power moves. Hawk wins that battle long enough for the LOD to hit sandwich clotheslines. Ross sells it like Williams should be dead after that, but he only gets 2. Animal plays the face in peril for Williams, the one guy it makes sense to sell it for.
Yeah, it's really not often you see the Road Warriors get jucked around like this.
Sullivan and Hawk both tag in, which goes badly for Sullivan. The end of the match gets botched as everyone seems to miss their cue. Hawk comes off the top rope and clotheslines Sullivan as Williams pins Animal, but the ref only counts Hawk's pin because they were the 2 legal guys. The Roadies retain at the 8-minute 26-second mark. The Road Warriors finally had a guy who could match power with them and still move around the ring. The match did feel a little bit rushed though.
And finally, we come to our main event of the evening. It's Ric Flair versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for the NWA World Title.
This marks the first match in the single greatest trilogy of matches in wrestling history. One of Vince McMahon's biggest mistakes was not treating Steamboat as he should have. Vince had his way, Steamboat had his. and it didn't seem like the two paths crossed much, as Steamboat became huge in the WWF despite Vince, not because of him. So after jobbing to Greg Valentine at WrestleMania 4, thereby robbing the show of its one guaranteed 5-star match, a Savage vs Steamboat rematch, Steamboat retired. Then Flair came calling. Steamboat made his return in January 1989 as the mystery partner of Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert in a tag team match where Steamboat pinned Flair, leading to this match.
We also see Steamboat stripping Flair down to his underpants as part of the match build-up. Last time I saw anything like that in wrestling, it was for a Divas match during the Attitude Era.
In addition to being portrayed as a down-to-earth family man, Steamboat also seems to have been given some of Dusty Rhodes' common man shtick. This is in direct comparison to Ric Flair's heavy partying, womanising, limousine riding, woo, jet flying lifestyle.
You could say that Ross bangs on quite a bit about the differences a little too much. He even goes on to talk about what schools they went to. In detail. It hurts. Oh, and again he reminds us that we wrestle in the NWA.
Damn it, by God. Flair is the only person to get an on-camera entrance throughout this entire pay-per-view, and what an entrance it is, with Flair having numerous women draped on each arm. As expected, these two start off the proceedings by exchanging stiff chops. No one else in the business could do chops like these two. They're literally hitting each other so hard that Jim Ross is flinching on commentary.
One nasty chop from Steamboat sends Flair sailing over the top rope. The ref rules that it was accidental, so the match continues. Which is good because there's none of this, oh, he went over the top rope so it's disqualified nonsense.
Steamboat gets a little distracted, enabling Flair to grab his ankle and pull him to the outside. From there, Flair cheats like a right bastard and rams Steamboat's head into the railing and leaves him on the outside. Back in, Flair lowers his knee pad so his knee can be driven into Steamboat's throat for 2. Double underhook gets 1. Another chopping match starts, ending with Flair going upside down into the corner. Flair charges the other corner and actually hits a flying body press off the top rope.
Oh, it actually worked this time.
Yes. But Steamboat reverses it for 2. Flair gets a quick reverse atomic drop and he locks on the figure 4. Steamboat pounds the mat in agony as Flair grasps the ropes for extra leverage.
Steamboat taps, but it's 1989 and no one does that yet, so the match continues. Finally, referee Tommy Young catches Flair using the ropes and makes him break the hold.
Flair and Steamboat trade chops yet again. Steamboat misses a chop and Flair delivers a cross-body block that sends both men to the outside. Flair doing a lot more aerial stuff than usual.
Yeah.
Steamboat fights back with chops on the outside, but Flair sends him into the ring post. Flair suplexes Steamboat back in for 2. A backdrop suplex gets 2 more.
Flair argues with Young for a while about the count and shoves him, but Young isn't having any of that shit and he shoves Rick back.
Yeah, you tell him, Tommy. Flair gives Steamboat a pendulum backbreaker and gets several near falls with his feet on the ropes. The crowd get on Flair about that, so he argues with them and tells them to shut up. Classic Flair.
Steamboat sneaks in and rolls up Flair for 2. Flair whips him to the corner, but Steamboat hops to the turnbuckle. Steamboat goes for a flying crossbody, but misses. Oh, wow! That's a shocker.
What kind of a match is this where Flair hits a crossbody block off the top rope but Steamboat misses? Flair headlocks him over and they go into their famous sequence, which ends when Steamboat bridges out into a butterfly suplex. Young counts 1, 2, 3, no. Flair's foot is on the ropes. Flair tries a hip toss, but Steamboat counters it to a backslide for 2. Steamboat backs Flair off with more chops and hits Flair with a clothesline. Steamboat delivers a flying cross chop and comes off the top with a chop between the eyes. Crowd is incredibly hot for this. Steamboat flies off the top for a flying crossbody block, but they knock Tommy Young out too. Steamboat tries to revive the ref, but Flair schoolboys him. Still, there's no ref. Steamboat comes off the top, but Flair ducks out of the way. Flair is about to finish Steamboat with the figure 4, but Steamboat counters to a small package as new referee Teddy Long comes in and counts the 3 at the 23-minute, 18-second mark. Just fantastic start to finish action.
And just to show that the Dusty era was finally over, Tommy Young wakes up miraculously and raises Steamboat's hand as well.
Yeah, no disrespect to the American Dream at all, but some of the most questionable booking decisions that we've seen during the previous NWA shows was when Dusty was the booker. There's a reason why they would call it the Dusty finish, because they used it so often during the Dusty era. And you could just bet that if Dusty still had the book, that Young would have reversed the decision into some sort of bullshit DQ decision and Flair would have kept the belt. Luckily, that isn't the case here, because I really think they would have pissed off the crowd something rotten. In short, this is one of the best wrestling matches of all time. And this is actually considered to be the worst match of the three that they had. So there's better stuff, even more to come.
Whoa.
This is wrestling the way it should be. Two guys with a grudge beating the hell out of each other until one of them makes a critical mistake. Now, how difficult is that to book?
Very difficult if you're Vince Russo.
Oh, Vince Russo won't come until much, much later.
Good. In the back, Steamboat is drenched in delicious champagne, which looks like it really annoys him as something gets in his eyes, and he managed to cut an exhausted promo covered in champagne, where he hopes that this is the start of the NWA's return to the top. After a quick recap between Ross and Magnum, the pay-per-view just comes to an end.
This event will always be remembered for the main event, but it has a solid undercard too. You definitely have to see Flair versus Steamboat if you're a wrestling fan, because that was the last of the old school 1970s style matches that are almost non-existent today. This was the start of something really special for the NWA and WCW.
The match with the two Midnight Express sort of teams was really enjoyable, but it was mostly down to Cornette and Heyman more than anything. The fact that Jack Victory is inserted into this match when he's never been in the Midnight Express makes it seem like a bit of an anticlimax. The Luger Windham is an excellent demonstration of the toughness of Barry Windham, and while really not a good match, it's good for a watch.
It's been said by other people that 1989 may have been the best pure wrestling year for the NWA, and this was the show that got the ball running. It said goodbye to the remnants of the Dusty era, so it was goodbye to the Russian Assassins, goodbye to Barry Windham, unfortunately for him, and ushering in the new guys, so guys like Sting, Steamboat, etc. So by all means, this show is well worth a watch.
Flair may have not been the most popular man in the dressing room, but he knew who was supposed to win and how to make the ones jobbing save face. This is exactly how it's supposed to be done.
In short, this comes highly recommended. Thumbs up. So, let's round things up there. So let's discuss the match of the night. Well, the match of the night for me has got to be, I think it's fairly obvious, Flair versus Steamboat. Just fantastic stuff. If you only watch one match from this pay-per-view, then it's got to be Flair versus Steamboat. And again, out of the three matches they had, this is actually considered to be the worst out of the three, and this was brilliant. So I can't wait to catch the other two and see what they're like. Although an honourable mention has to go also to the Midnight Express versus Midnight Express. I've enjoyed all the stuff with the Midnight Express throughout all these NWA pay-per-views that we've caught so far. And just having Jim Cornette and Paul Heyman in that match just made it even better. What about you, little Daddy E?
Well, again, the Flair Steamboat one has probably would be like the best match on this pay-per-view. Again, a lot of the same stuff you said. I mean, there are some matches which could have maybe been booked differently, but like the Russian Assassin one.
But haven't you noticed that in terms of booking, there's now a huge difference between this pay-per-view, which is like the first time where Flair's the booker, and the last one we watched, Starrcade, where it was Dusty's last run as the booker. There's like a big difference between the two. There's no bullshit count out, no bullshit time limit, no bullshit DQ finishes or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
No bullshit stopping the match due to excessive blood loss or anything like that. I mean, if you consider they had Flair versus Luger last time and they stopped the match for excessive blood loss, there was more blood in the Luger versus Windham match. I mean, Luger broke his bloody hand for crying out loud and still continued to wrestle. In fact, an honourable mention has to go to Barry Windham for breaking his hand and still continuing to wrestle and carrying Lex Luger to a decent match for another 10 minutes. So, in conclusion, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/TheBigDaddyD Reviews, or just search for The Big Daddy D Reviews on Facebook. We are on Twitter at TheBigDaddyD1. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/All-CAW Wrestling 1. as well as my second channel, youtube.com/The Big Daddy D Reviews 1. Please take the time to like and share this video, as well as dropping us a few comments to show us some love. You know, all that good stuff.
And feel free to draw Barry Windham like one of your French girls. Actually, please don't, that's horrifying.
Oh my god! What? I really hope we... No, please don't do that.
Don't.
What? Where did that come from?
I don't know.
Anyway, you've scared me now.
Yeah. Join us next time when we're back in the WWF for WrestleMania 5, where the Mega Powers explode. It's horrible, there's gore everywhere. Oh wait, no, they don't actually explode. As Randy Savage has a wrestling match with himself.
Yeah. Until then, this is the Big Daddy D.
And this is the Little Daddy E.
And we're signing off on another episode of the All-CAW Wrestling video podcast type thing. Bye. Say bye.
Bye.